Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 61, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just two poems, Sir Galahad and A Name in the Sand. Part 5 continued. Sir Galahad. Sir Galahad is the most moral and upright of all the knights of the Round Table. The strong lines of the poem are the strong lines of human destiny. My good blade carves the casques of men, my tough lance thrusteth sure. My strength is as the strength of 10, because my heart is pure. The shattering trumpet shrilleth high, the hard brands shiver on the steel, the splintered spear shafts crack and fly, the horse and rider reel. They reel, they roll in clanging lists, and when the tide of combat stands, perfume and flowers fall in showers that lightly rain from ladies' hands. How sweet are looks that ladies bend on whom their favours fall! For them I battle till the end, to save from shame and thrall. But all my heart is drawn above, my knees are bowed in crypt and shrine. I never felt the kiss of love, nor maiden's hand in mine. More bounteous aspects on me beam, me mightier transports move and thrill. So keep I fair through faith and prayer, a virgin heart in work and will. When down the stormy crescent goes, a light before me swims, between dark stems the forest glows, I hear a noise of hymns. Then by some secret shrine I ride, I hear a voice, but none are there. The stalls are void, the doors are wide, the tapers burning fair. Fair gleams the snowy altar cloth, the silver vessels sparkle clean. The shrill bell rings, the censer swings, and solemn chants resound between. Sometimes on lonely mountain meres I find a magic bark. I leap on board, no helmsman steers, I float till all is dark. A gentle sound, an awful light, 3 angels bear the Holy Grail, with folded feet in stoles of white, on sleeping wings they sail. Ah, blessed vision, blood of God, my spirit beats her mortal bars, as down dark tides the glory slides, and starlike mingles with the stars. When on my goodly charger borne through dreaming towns I go, the cock crows ere the Christmas morn, the streets are dumb with snow. The tempest crackles on the leads, and ringing springs from brand and mail, but o'er the dark a glory spreads, and gilds the driving hail. I leave the plain, I climb the height, no branchy thicket shelter yields, but blessed forms in whistling storms fly o'er waste fens and windy fields. A maiden night, to me is given such hope I know not fear. I yearn to breathe the airs of heaven that often meet me here. I muse on joy that will not cease, pure spaces clothed in living beams, pure lilies of eternal peace, whose odours haunt my dreams. And stricken by an angel's hand, this mortal armour that I wear, this weight and size, this heart and eyes, are touched, are turned to finest air. The clouds are broken in the sky, and through the mountain walls a rolling organ harmony swells up and shakes and falls. Then move the trees, the copses nod, wings flutter, voices hover clear. O just and faithful knight of God, ride on, the prize is near. So pass I hostel, hall, and grange, by bridge and ford, by park and pale. All armed I ride, whate'er betide, until I find the Holy Grail. Alfred Tennyson. A Name in the Sand. A Name in the Sand, by Hannah Flagg Gould (1789 1865), is a poem to correct our ready overestimate of our own importance. Alone I walked the ocean strand, a pearly shell was in my hand. I stooped and wrote upon the sand my name, the year, the day. As onward from the spot I passed, one lingering look behind I cast. A wave came rolling high and fast, and washed my lines away. And so, methought, 'twill shortly be with every mark on earth from me. A wave of dark oblivion's sea will sweep across the place where I have trod the sandy shore of time and been to be no more of me, my day, the name I bore, to leave nor track nor trace. And yet, with him who counts the sands and holds the waters in his hands, I know a lasting record stands inscribed against my name. Of all this mortal part has wrought, of all this thinking soul has thought, and from these fleeting moments caught for glory or for shame. Hannah Flagg Gould. End of section 61. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 7th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 62. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Voice of Spring and The Forsaken Merman. Part 6. Grow old along with me, the best is yet to be, the last of life, for which the first was made. The Voice of Spring. The Voice of Spring by Felicia Hemans (1749 1835) becomes attractive as years go on. The line in this poem that captivated my youthful fancy was, "The larch has hung all his tassels forth." The delight with which trees hang out their new little tassels every year is one of the charms of the pine family. John Burroughs sent us down a tiny hemlock that grew in our window box at school for 5 years, and every spring it was a new joy on account of the fine, tender tassels. Mrs. Hemans has a vivid imagination, backed up by an abundant information. I come, ye have called me long, I come o'er the mountains with light and song. Ye may trace my step o'er the waking earth, by the winds which tell of the violet's birth, by the primrose stars in the shadowy grass, by the green leaves opening as I pass. I have breathed on the south and the chestnut flowers by thousands have burst from the forest bowers, and the ancient graves and the fallen fanes are veiled with wreaths on Italian plains. But it is not for me in my hour of bloom to speak of the ruin or the tomb. I have looked o'er the hills of the stormy north, and the larch has hung all his tassels forth. The fisher is out on the sunny sea, and the reindeer bounds o'er the pastures free, and the pine has a fringe of softer green, and the moss looks bright where my step has been. I have sent through the wood paths a glowing sigh, and called out each voice of the deep blue sky, from the night bird's lay through the starry time in the groves of the soft Hesperian clime, to the swan's wild note by the Iceland lakes, when the dark fir branch into verdure breaks. From the streams and founts I have loosed the chain, they are sweeping on to the silvery main, they are flashing down from the mountain brows, they are flinging spray o'er the forest boughs. They are bursting fresh from their sparry caves, and the earth resounds with the joy of waves. Felicia Hemans. The Forsaken Merman. The Forsaken Merman by Matthew Arnold (1822 1888) is a poem that I do not expect children to appreciate fully, even when they care enough for it to learn it. It is too long for most children to commit to memory, and I generally assign one stanza to one pupil and another to another pupil until it is divided up among them. The poem is a masterpiece. Doubtless the poet meant to show that the forsaken merman had a greater soul to save than the woman who sought to save her soul by deserting natural duty. Salvation does not come through the faith that builds itself at the expense of love. Come, dear children, let us away, down and away below. Now my brothers call from the bay, now the great winds shoreward blow, now the salt tides seaward flow, now the wild white horses play, champ and chafe and toss in the spray. Children dear, let us away, this way, this way. Call her once before you go, call once yet, in a voice that she will know. Margaret! Margaret! Children's voices should be dear. Call once more, to a mother's ear. Children's voices wild with pain, surely she will come again. Call her once, and come away, this way, this way. Mother dear, we cannot stay, the wild white horses foam and fret. Margaret! Margaret! Come, dear children, come away down, call no more. One last look at the white-walled town, and the little grey church on the windy shore, then come down. She will not come though you call all day. Come away, come away. Children dear, was it yesterday we heard the sweet bells over the bay? In the caverns where we lay, through the surf and through the swell, the far-off sound of a silver bell? Sand-strewn caverns cool and deep, where the winds are all asleep, where the spent lights quiver and gleam, where the salt weed sways in the stream, where the sea-beasts, ranged all round, feed in the ooze of their pasture-ground, where the sea-snakes coil and twine, dry their mail, and bask in the brine, where great whales come sailing by, sail and sail, with unshut eye, round the world for ever and aye. When did music come this way? Children dear, was it yesterday? Children dear, was it yesterday? Call yet once, that she went away? Once she sat with you and me, on a red gold throne in the heart of the sea, and the youngest sat on her knee. She combed its bright hair, and she tended it well, when down swung the sound of a far-off bell. She sighed, she looked up through the clear green sea. She said, I must go, for my kinsfolk pray in the little grey church on the shore to-day. 'Twill be Easter time in the world, ah me, and I lose my poor soul, merman, here with thee. I said, Go up, dear heart, through the waves, say thy prayer, and come back to the kind sea caves. She smiled, she went up through the surf in the bay. Children dear, was it yesterday? Children dear, were we long alone? The sea grows stormy, the little ones moan. Long prayers, I said, in the world they say. Come, I said, and we rose through the surf in the bay. We went up the beach by the sandy down, where the sea-stalks bloom, to the white-walled town. Through the narrow paved streets, where all was still, to the little grey church on the windy hill. From the church came a murmur of folk at their prayers, but we stood without, in the cold blowing airs. We climbed on the graves, on the stones worn with rains, and we gazed up the aisle through the small leaded panes. She sat by the pillar, we saw her clear. Margaret, hist! Come quick, we are here. Dear heart, I said, we are long alone. The sea grows stormy, the little ones moan. But ah, she gave me never a look, for her eyes were sealed to the holy book. Loud prays the priest, shut stands the door. Come away, children, call no more. Come away, come down, call no more. Down, 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 down to the depths of the sea, she sits at her wheel in the humming town, singing most joyfully. Hark what she sings! O joy, for the humming street, and the child with its toy, for the priest, and the bell, and the holy well, for the wheel where I spun, and the blessed light of the sun. and so she sings her fill, singing most joyfully, till the spindle drops from her hand, and the whizzing wheel stands still. She steals to the window and looks at the sand, and over the sand at the sea, and her eyes are set in a stare, and anon there breaks a sigh, and anon there drops a tear from a sorrow-clouded eye, and a heart sorrow-laden, a long, long sigh, for the cold, strange eyes of a little mermaiden, and the gleam of her golden hair. Come away, away, children, come down. The hoarse wind blows colder, lights shine in the town. She will start from her slumber when gusts shake the door. She will hear the winds howling, will hear the waves roar. We shall see, while above us the waves roar and whirl, a ceiling of amber, a pavement of pearl, singing, "Here came a mortal, but faithless was she, and alone dwell forever the kings of the sea." But children, at midnight, when soft the winds blow, when clear falls the moonlight, when springtides are low, when sweet airs come seaward from heaths starred with broom, and high rocks throw mildly on the blanched sands a gloom, up the still glistening beaches, up the creeks we will hie, over banks of bright seaweed the ebb tide leaves dry. We will gaze from the sand hills at the white sleeping town, at the church on the hillside, and then come back down, singing, "There dwells a loved one, but cruel is she. She left lonely forever the kings of the sea." Matthew Arnold. End of section 62. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 7th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 63. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: The Banks o' Doon, The Light of Other Days, and My Own Shall Come to Me. Part 6 continued. The Banks o' Doon. The Banks o' Doon by Robert Burns, 1759 1796. Bonnie Doon is in the southwestern part of Scotland. Robert Burns's old home is close to it. The house has low walls, a thatched roof, and only 2 rooms. Alloway Kirk and the 2 bridges so famous in Robert Burns' verse are near by. This is an enchanted land, and the Scotch people for miles around Ayr speak of the poet with sincere affection. Burns, more than any other poet, has thrown the enchantment of poetry over his own locality. Ye banks and braes o' bonnie Doon, how can ye bloom sae fair? How can ye chant, ye little birds, and eyes sae fu' o' care? Thou'lt break my heart, thou bonnie bird that sings upon the bough. Thou minds me o' the happy days when my fause love was true. Thou'lt break my heart, thou bonnie bird that sings beside thy mate, for sae I sat and sae I sang, and wist na o' my fate. Aft hae I roved by bonnie Doon to see the woodbine twine, and ilka bird sang o' its love, and sae did I o' mine. Wi' lightsome heart I pulled a rose fra off its thorny tree, and my fause lover staw the rose, but left the thorn wi' me. Robert Burns. The Light of Other Days. Oft in the stilly night, ere slumber's chain has bound me, fond memory brings the light of other days around me. The smiles, the tears of boyhood's years, the words of love then spoken, the eyes that shone, now dimmed and gone, the cheerful hearts now broken. Thus in the stilly night, ere slumber's chain has bound me, sad memory brings the light of other days around me. When I remember all the friends so linked together I've seen around me fall like leaves in wintry weather, I feel like one who treads alone some banquet hall deserted, whose lights are fled, whose garlands dead, and all but he departed. Thus in the stilly night, ere slumber's chain has bound me, sad memory brings the light of other days around me. Thomas Moore. My Own Shall Come to Me. If John Burroughs had never written any other poem than My Own Shall Come to Me, he would have stood to all ages as one of the greatest of American poets. The poem is most characteristic of the tall, majestic, slow-going poet and naturalist. There is no greater line in Greek or English literature than "I stand amid the eternal ways." Serene I fold my hands and wait, nor care for wind, nor tide, nor sea. I rave no more 'gainst time or fate, for lo, my own shall come to me. I stay my haste, I make delays, for what avails this eager pace? I stand amid the eternal ways, and what is mine shall know my face. Asleep, awake, by night or day, the friends I seek are seeking me. No wind can drive my bark astray, nor change the tide of destiny. What matter if I stand alone? I wait with joy the coming years. My heart shall reap when it has sown, and gather up its fruit of tears. The stars come nightly to the sky, the tidal wave comes to the sea, nor time, nor space, nor deep, nor high can keep my own away from me. The waters know their own, and draw the brook that springs in yonder heights. So flows the good with equal law unto the soul of pure delights. John Burroughs. End of section 63. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 9th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 64. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, Ode to a Skylark and The Sands of Dee. Part 6 continued. Ode to a Skylark. Ode to a Skylark by Percy Bysshe Shelley, 1792 to 1822, is usually assigned to grammar grades of schools. It is included here out of respect to a boy of 11 years who was more impressed with these lines than with any other lines in any poem. Hail to thee, blithe spirit! Bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as, when night is bare, from one lonely cloud the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. What thou art we know not, what is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panted forth a flood of rapture so divine. Chorus hymeneal or triumphal chant, matched with thine, would be all but an empty vaunt, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What fields, or waves, or mountains, what shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind, what ignorance of pain? Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know, such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world should listen then, as I am listening now. Percy Bysshe Shelley. The Sands of Dee. I have often had the pleasure of riding across the coast from Chester, England, to Rhyl on the north coast of Wales, where stretch the Sands of Dee. These purple sands at low tide stretch off into the sea miles away, and are said to be full of quicksands. Oh, Mary, go and call the cattle home, and call the cattle home, and call the cattle home across the sands of Dee. The western wind was wild and dark with foam, and all alone went she. The western tide crept up along the sand, and o'er the sand, and round the sand, as far as eye could see. The rolling mist came down and hid the land, and never home came she. Oh, is it weed, or fish, or floating hair, a tress of golden hair, a drowned maiden's hair, above the nets at sea? Was never salmon yet that shone so fair among the stakes on Dee. They rowed her in across the rolling foam, the cruel crawling foam, the cruel hungry foam, to her grave beside the sea. But still the boatmen hear her call the cattle home, across the sands of Dee. Charles Kingsley. End of section 64. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 9th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 65. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: A Wish, Lucy, Solitude, John Anderson, and The God of Music. Part 6, continued. A Wish. A Wish, by Samuel Rogers, 1763 to 1855, and Lucy, by Wordsworth, 1770 to 1850, are two gems that can be valued only for the spirit of quiet and modesty diffused by them. Mine be a cot beside the hill, a beehive's hum shall soothe my ear. A willowy brook that turns a mill with many a fall shall linger near. The swallow oft beneath my thatch shall twitter from her clay-built nest. Oft shall the pilgrim lift the latch and share my meal, a welcome guest. Around my ivied porch shall spring each fragrant flower that drinks the dew, and Lucy at her wheel shall sing, in russet gown and apron blue. The village church among the trees, where first our marriage vows were given, with merry peals shall swell the breeze, and point with taper spire to heaven. S. Rogers. Lucy. She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the springs of Dove, a maid whom there were none to praise, and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be, but she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me! William Wordsworth. Solitude. Happy the man whose wish and care a few paternal acres bound, content to breathe his native air in his own ground. Whose herds with milk, whose fields with bread, whose flocks supply him with attire, whose trees in summer yield him shade, in winter fire. Blessed who can unconcernedly find hours, days, and years slide soft away, in health of body, peace of mind, quiet by day. Sound sleep by night, study and ease together mixed, sweet recreation, and innocence, which most does please, with meditation. Thus let me live, unseen, unknown, thus unlamented let me die, steal from the world, and not a stone tell where I lie. Alexander Pope. John Anderson. John Anderson, by Robert Burns, 1759 1796. This poem is included to please several teachers. John Anderson, my Jo, John, when we were first acquaint, your locks were like the raven, your bonny brow was brent. But now your brow is bald, John, your locks are like the snow, but blessings on your frosty pow, John Anderson, my Jo. John Anderson, my Jo, John, we clamb the hill thegither, and mony a canty day, John, we've had wi' ane anither. Now we maun totter down, John, but hand in hand we'll go, and sleep together at the foot, John Anderson, my Jo. Robert Burns. The God of Music. The God of Music, by Edith M. Thomas, an Ohio poetess now living. In this sonnet the poetess has touched the power of Wordsworth or Keats, and placed herself among the immortals. The God of Music dwelleth out of doors. All seasons through his minstrelsy we meet, breathing by field and covert haunting sweet, from organ lofts in forests old he pours a solemn harmony, on leafy floors to smooth autumnal pipes he moves his feet, or with the tingling plectrum of the sleet in winter keen beats out his thrilling scores. Leave me the reed unplucked beside the stream, and he will stoop and fill it with the breeze. Leave me the viol's frame in secret trees, unwrought, and it shall wake a Druid theme. Leave me the whispering shell on Nereid shores. The God of Music dwelleth out of doors. Edith M. Thomas. End of section 65. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 9th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 66. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains 2 poems, A Musical Instrument and The Brides of Enderby. Part 6 continued. A Musical Instrument. A Musical Instrument, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, 1806 to 1861. This poem is the supreme masterpiece of Mrs. Browning. The prime thought in it is the sacrifice and pain that must go to make a poet of any genius. What was he doing, the great god Pan, down in the reeds by the river? Spreading ruin and scattering ban, splashing and paddling with hoofs of a goat, and breaking the golden lilies afloat with the dragonfly on the river. He tore out a reed, the great god Pan, from the deep cool bed of the river. The limpid water turbidly ran, and the broken lilies a dying lay, and the dragonfly had fled away ere he brought it out of the river. High on the shore sat the great god Pan, while turbidly flowed the river, and hacked and hewed as a great god can with his hard bleak steel at the patient reed, till there was not a sign of a leaf indeed to prove it fresh from the river. He cut it short, did the great god Pan, how tall it stood in the river, then drew the pith, like the heart of a man, steadily from the outside ring, and notched the poor dry empty thing in holes, as he sat by the river. This is the way, laughed the great god Pan, laughed while he sat by the river. The only way since gods began to make sweet music they could succeed. Then dropping his mouth to a hole in the reed, he blew in power by the river. Sweet, 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 O Pan, piercing sweet by the river. Blinding sweet, O great god Pan, the sun on the hill forgot to die, and the lilies revived, and the dragonfly came back to dream on the river. Yet half a beast is the great god Pan, to laugh as he sits by the river. Making a poet out of a man, the true gods sigh for the cost and pain, for the reed which grows nevermore again, as a reed with the reeds in the river. Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The Brides of Enderby. The Brides of Enderby, by Jean Ingelow, 1830 to 1897. This poem is very dramatic, and the music of the refrain has done much to make it popular. But the pathos is that which endears it. The old Mayor climbed the belfry tower, the ringers ran by 2 by 3. "Pull, if ye never pulled before, good ringers, pull your best," quoth he. Play up, O Boston bells, ply all your changes, all your swells, play up, the Brides of Enderby." Men say it was a stolen tide, the Lord that sent it, he knows all, but in mine ears doth still abide the message that the bells let fall. And there was naught of strange beside the flight of mews and peewits pied by millions crouched on the old sea wall. I sat and spun within the door, my thread brake off, I raised mine eyes, the level sun like ruddy ore lay sinking in the barren skies. And dark against day's golden death she moved where Lindis wandereth, my son's fair wife, Elizabeth. Cusha, 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 calling, ere the early dews were falling. Far away I heard her song, Cusha, Cusha, all along, where the reedy Lindis floweth, floweth, floweth. From the meads where melick groweth, faintly came her milking song. Cusha, 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 calling, for the dews will soon be falling. Leave your meadow grasses mellow, mellow, mellow. Quit your cowslips, cowslips yellow. Come up, Whitefoot, come up, Lightfoot. Quit the stalks of parsley hollow, hollow, hollow. Come up, Jetty, rise and follow. From the clovers lift your head. Come up, Whitefoot, come up, Lightfoot. Come up, Jetty, rise and follow, Jetty, to the milking shed. If it be long, aye, long ago, when I begin to think how long, again I hear the Lindis flow, swift as an arrow, sharp and strong, and all the air, it seemeth me, been full of floating bells, saith she, that ring the tune of Enderby. All fresh the level pasture lay, and not a shadow mote be seen, save where full 5 good miles away the steeple towered from out the green. And lo! the great bell far and wide was heard in all the countryside that Saturday at eventide. The swanherds where their sedges are moved on in sunset's golden breath. The shepherd lads I heard afar, and my son's wife Elizabeth, till floating o'er the grassy sea came down that kindly message free, the brides of Mavis Enderby. Then some looked up into the sky, and all along where Lindis flows, to where the goodly vessels lie, and where the lordly steeple shows. They said, "And why should this thing be? What danger lowers by land or sea? They ring the tune of Enderby." For evil news from Mablethorpe of pirate galleys warping down, for ships ashore beyond the Scorp they have not spared to wake the town. But while the west been red to see, and storms be none, and pirates flee, why ring the Brides of Enderby? I looked without, and lo! my son came riding down with might and main. He raised a shout as he drew on, till all the welkin rang again. "Elizabeth! Elizabeth!" A sweeter woman ne'er drew breath than my son's wife, Elizabeth. "The old sea wall," he cried, "is down, the rising tide comes on apace, and boats adrift in yonder town go sailing up the market place." He shook as one that looks on death. "God save you, mother," straight he saith, "where is my wife Elizabeth?" "Good son, where Lindis winds her way, With her two bairns I marked her long, And ere yon bells began to play, Afar I heard her milking song." He looked across the grassy lea, To right, to left. "Ho, Enderby!" They rang, the brides of Enderby. With that he cried and beat his breast, For lo! along the river's bed A mighty eygre reared his crest, And up the Lindis raging sped. It swept with thunderous noises loud, Shaped like a curling snow-white cloud, Or like a demon in a shroud. And rearing Lindis backward pressed, Shook all her trembling banks amain, Then madly at the eygre's breast Flung up her weltering walls again. Then banks came down with ruin and rout, Then beaten foam flew round about, Then all the mighty floods were out. So far, so fast the eygre drave, The heart had barely time to beat, Before a shallow seething wave Sobbed in the grasses at our feet. The feet had hardly time to flee Before it brake against the knee, And all the world was in the sea. Upon the roof we sat that night, The noise of bells went sweeping by. I marked the lofty beacon light Stream from the church tower, red and high, A lurid mark and dread to see, And awesome bells they were to me, That in the dark rang Enderby. They rang the sailor lads to guide From roof to roof who fearless rode, And my son was at my side, And yet the ruddy beacon glowed, And yet he moaned beneath his breath, "Oh, come in life or come in death, Oh, lost, my love, Elizabeth!" And didst thou visit him no more? Thou didst, my daughter dear. The waters laid thee at his door, Ere yet the early dawn was clear. Thy pretty bairns in fast embrace, The lifted sun shone on thy face, Down drifted to thy dwelling place. That flow strewed wrecks about the grass, That ebb swept out the flocks to sea, A fatal ebb and flow, alas! To many more than mine and me. But each will mourn his own, she saith, And sweeter woman ne'er drew breath Than my son's wife Elizabeth. I shall never hear her more By the reedy Lindis shore, Cusha, 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 calling, Ere the early dews be falling. I shall never hear her song, Cusha, cusha, all along, Where the sunny Lindis floweth, Goeth, floweth, from the meads where melick groweth, When the water winding down, Onward floweth to the town. I shall never see her more Where the reeds and rushes quiver, Shiver, quiver, stand beside the sobbing river, Sobbing, throbbing in its falling To the sandy lonesome shore. I shall never hear her calling, "Leave your meadow grasses mellow, 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 Quit your cowslips, cowslips yellow. Come up, Whitefoot, come up, Lightfoot, Quit your pipes of parsley hollow, hollow, hollow. Come up, Lightfoot, rise and follow, Lightfoot, Whitefoot. From your clovers lift the head. Come up, Jetty, follow, follow, Jetty, to the milking shed." Jean Ingelow. End of section 66. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 12, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Every Child Should Know. Edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 67. Read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains two poems, The Lie and L'Envoi. Part 6 continued. The Lie. The Lie by Sir Walter Raleigh, 1552 1618, is one of the strongest and most appealing poems a teacher can read to her pupils when teaching early American history. The poem is full of magnificent lines, such as, "Go, soul, the body's guest." The poem never lacks an attentive audience of young people when correlated with the study of North Carolina and Sir Walter Raleigh. The solitary, majestic character of Sir Walter Raleigh, his intrepidity while undergoing tortures inflicted by a cowardly king, the ring of indignation, All these make a weapon for him stronger than the axe that beheaded him. In this poem he has the last word. Go, soul, the body's guest, upon a thankless arrant. Fear not to touch the best. The truth shall be thy warrant. Go, since I needs must die, and give the world the lie. Go tell the court it glows and shines like rotten wood. Go tell the church it shows what's good, and doth no good. If church and court reply, then give them both the lie. Tell potentates they live acting by others' actions, not loved unless they give, not strong but by their factions. If potentates reply, give potentates the lie. Tell men of high condition that rule affairs of state, their purpose is ambition, their practice only hate. And if they once reply, then give them all the lie. Tell zeal it lacks devotion, tell love it is but lust, tell time it is but motion, tell flesh it is but dust, and wish them not reply, for thou must give the lie. Tell wit how much it wrangles in tickle points of niceness, tell wisdom she entangles herself in over-wiseness, and if they do reply, straight give them both the lie. Tell physic of her boldness, tell skill it is pretension, tell charity of coldness, tell law it is contention, and as they yield reply, so give them still the lie. Tell fortune of her blindness, tell nature of decay, tell friendship of unkindness, tell justice of delay, and if they dare reply, then give them all the lie. Tell arts they have no soundness, but vary by esteeming, tell schools they want profoundness, and stand too much on seeming. If arts and schools reply, give arts and schools the lie. So when thou hast, as I commanded thee, done blabbing, although to give the lie deserves no less than stabbing, yet stab at thee who will, no stab the soul can kill. Sir Walter Raleigh. L'Envoi. L'Envoi, by Rudyard Kipling, is a favorite on account of its sweeping assertion of the individual's right to self-development. When earth's last picture is painted, and the tubes are twisted and dried, when the oldest colors have faded, and the youngest critic has died, we shall rest, and, faith, we shall need it, lie down for an aeon or two, till the Master of all good workmen shall set us to work anew. And those who were good shall be happy. They shall sit in a golden chair. They shall splash at a 10-league canvas with brushes of comet's hair. They shall find real saints to draw from, Magdalene, Peter, and Paul. They shall work for an age at a sitting, and never be tired at all. And only the Master shall praise us, and only the Master shall blame. And no one shall work for money, and no one shall work for fame, but each for the joy of the working, and each in his separate star shall draw the thing as he sees it, for the God of things as they are. Rudyard Kipling. End of section 67. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 12th, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 68, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Contentment, The Harp That Once Through Tara's Halls, and The Old Oaken Bucket. Part 6 continued. Contentment. Contentment, by Edward Dyer, 1545 to 1607. This poem holds much to comfort and control people who are shut up to the joys of meditation, people to whom the world of activity is closed. To be independent of things material, this is the soul's pleasure. My mind to me a kingdom is, such perfect joy therein I find as far excels all earthly bliss that God or nature hath assigned. Though much I want that most would have, yet still my mind forbids to crave. Content I live, this is my stay, I seek no more than may suffice. I press to bear no haughty sway. Look, what I lack my mind supplies. Lo, thus I triumph like a king, Content with that my mind doth bring. I laugh not at another's loss, I grudge not at another's gain. No worldly wave my mind can toss, I brook that is another's bane. I fear no foe, nor fawn on friend, I loathe not life, nor dread mine end. My wealth is health and perfect ease, My conscience clear, my chief defence. I never seek by bribes to please, Nor by desert to give offence. Thus do I live, thus will I die. Would all did so as well as I. Edward Dyer. The harp that once through Tara's halls. The harp that once through Tara's halls The soul of music shed, Now hangs as mute on Tara's walls As if that soul were fled. So sleeps the pride of former days, So glory's thrill is o'er, And hearts that once beat high for praise Now feel that pulse no more. No more to chiefs and ladies bright The harp of Tara swells, The chord alone that breaks at night Its tale of ruin tells. Thus freedom now so seldom wakes, The only throb she gives Is when some heart indignant breaks, To show that still she lives. Thomas Moore. The Old Oaken Bucket. The Old Oaken Bucket by Samuel Woodworth (1785 1848) is a poem we love because it is an elegant expression of something very dear and homely. How dear to this heart are the scenes of my childhood, when fond recollection presents them to view! The orchard, the meadow, the deep tangled wildwood, and every loved spot which my infancy knew. The wide spreading pond, and the mill that stood by it, the bridge, and the rock where the cataract fell, the cot of my father, the dairy house nigh it, and e'en the rude bucket that hung in the well, the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket which hung in the well. That moss-covered vessel I hailed as a treasure, for often at noon, when returned from the field, I found it the source of an exquisite pleasure, the purest and sweetest that nature can yield. How ardent I seized it, with hands that were glowing, and quick to the white pebbled bottom it fell. There soon, with the emblem of truth overflowing and dripping with coolness, it rose from the well. The old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket arose from the well. How sweet from the green mossy brim to receive it as poised on the curb it inclined to my lips! Not a full blushing goblet could tempt me to leave it, the brightest that beauty or revelry sips. And now, far removed from the loved habitation, the tear of regret will intrusively swell, as fancy reverts to my father's plantation, and sighs for the bucket that hangs in the well, the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket that hangs in the well. Samuel Woodworth. End of section 68. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13, 2007 in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 69, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, The Raven. Part 6 continued. The Raven. The Raven, by Edgar Allan Poe, 1809 1849, is placed here because so many college men speak of it at once as the great poem of their boyhood. The poem caught me when a child by its refrain and weird picturesqueness. It has never outgrown its mechanical charm. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of some one gently rapping, rapping at my chamber door. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this, and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This is it, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a rapping, something louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when, with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched above a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope this melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore." But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy into fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking "Nevermore." Thus I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, ah, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls twinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, respite and nepenthe from my memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the Raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore." Quoth the Raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore." Quoth the Raven, "Nevermore." "Be that our sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked, upstarting, "get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door." Quoth the Raven, "Nevermore." And the Raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Edgar Allan Poe. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 70, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains just one poem, Arnold von Winkelried. Part 6 continued. Arnold von Winkelried. "Make way for liberty!" he cried. "Make way for liberty!" and died. In arms the Austrian phalanx stood, a living wall, a human wood, a wall where every conscious stone seemed to its kindred thousands grown, a rampart all assaults to bear, till time to dust their frames should wear. So still, so dense the Austrians stood, a living wall, a human wood. Impregnable their front appears, all horrent with projected spears, whose polished points before them shine from flank to flank one brilliant line, bright as the breakers' splendors run along the billows to the sun. Opposed to these a hovering band contended for their fatherland, peasants whose new-found strength had broke from manly necks the ignoble yoke, and beat their fetters into swords, on equal terms to fight their lords, and what insurgent rage had gained, in many a mortal fray maintained, marshalled once more at freedom's call, they came to conquer or to fall, where he who conquered, he who fell, was deemed a dead or living tell. Such virtue had that patriot breathed, so to the soil his soul bequeathed, that wheresoe'er his arrows flew, heroes in his own likeness grew, and warriors sprang from every sod which his awakening footstep trod. And now the work of life and death hung on the passing of a breath. The fire of conflict burned within, the battle trembled to begin, yet while the Austrians held their ground, point for attack was nowhere found. Where'er the impatient Switzers gazed, the unbroken line of lances blazed. That line 'twere suicide to meet and perish at their tyrants' feet. How could they rest within their graves, and leave their homes, the homes of slaves? Would not they feel their children tread with clanging chains above their head? It must not be. This day, this hour, annihilates the invader's power. All Switzerland is in the field. She will not fly, she cannot yield, she must not fall. Her better fate here gives her an immortal date. Few were the numbers she could boast, but every freeman was a host, and felt as 'twere a secret known that one should turn the scale alone, while each unto himself was he on whose sole arm hung victory. It did depend on one indeed. Behold him, Arnold Winkelried. There sounds not to the trump of fame the echo of a nobler name. Unmarked he stood amid the throng, in rumination deep and long, till you might see with sudden grace the very thought come o'er his face, and by the motion of his form anticipate the bursting storm, and by the uplifting of his brow tell where the bolt would strike and how. But 'twas no sooner thought than done. The field was in a moment won. "Make way for liberty!" he cried, then ran with arms extended wide, as if his dearest friend to clasp. 10 spears he swept within his grasp. "Make way for liberty!" he cried. Their keen points crossed from side to side. He bowed amidst them like a tree, and thus made way for liberty. Swift to the breach his comrades fly. "Make way for liberty!" they cry, and through the Austrian phalanx dart, as rushed the spears through Arnold's heart, while instantaneous as his fall, rout, ruin, panic seized them all. An earthquake could not overthrow a city with a surer blow. Thus Switzerland again was free, thus death made way for liberty. James Montgomery. End of section 70. Read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007, in Oceanside, California. Poems Every Child Should Know, edited by Mary E. Burt. Section 71, read for LibriVox.org by Kara Schallenberg. This section contains the following poems: Life, I Know Not What Thou Art, Mercy, Polonius's Advice, a fragment from Mark Antony's speech, and The Skylark. Part 6 continued. Life, I know not what thou art. Life, I know not what thou art, but know that thou and I must part. And when, or how, or where we met, I own, to me's a secret yet. Life, we've been long together, through pleasant and through cloudy weather. 'Tis hard to part when friends are dear, perhaps 'twill cost a sigh, a tear. Then steal away, give little warning, choose thine own time. Say not good night, but in some brighter clime, bid me good morning. A. L. Barbauld. Mercy. Mercy, an excerpt from The Merchant of Venice, Polonius's Advice from Hamlet, and Antony's speech from Julius Caesar, all fragments from Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, find a place in this book because a well-known New York teacher, one who is unremitting in his efforts to raise the good taste and character of his pupils, says, "A book of poetry could not be complete without these extracts." The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His sceptre shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above his sceptred sway. It is enthroned in the hearts of kings. It is an attribute to God himself, and earthly power doth then show likest God's, when mercy seasons justice. Shakespeare, from The Merchant of Venice. Polonius's advice. See thou character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. The friends thou hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged comrade. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but, being in, bear't that the posed may beware of thee. Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy, rich, not gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Shakespeare, from Hamlet. A fragment from Mark Antony's speech. This was the noblest Roman of them all. All the conspirators, save only he, did that they did in envy of great Caesar. He only, in a general honest thought, and common good to all, made one of them. His life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to all the world, "This was a man." Shakespeare, from Julius Caesar. The Skylark. Bird of the wilderness, blithesome and cumberless, sweet be thy matin o'er moorland and lea. Emblem of happiness, blessed is thy dwelling place. Oh, to abide in the desert with thee! Wild is thy lay, and loud, far in the downy cloud. Love gives it energy, love gave it birth. Where on thy dewy wing, where art thou journeying? Thy lay is in heaven, thy love is on earth. O'er fell and fountain sheen, o'er moor and mountain green, o'er the red streamer that heralds the day, over the cloudlet dim, over the rainbow's rim, musical cherub, soar, singing away. Then when the gloaming comes, low in the heather blooms, sweet will thy welcome and bed of love be. Emblem of happiness, blessed is thy dwelling place. Oh, to abide in the desert with thee! Thomas Hogg. End of section 71, read by Kara Schallenberg on January 13th, 2007 in Oceanside, California.